Okay, so this right here is my first ever Xiaomi tablet. In fact, this is my first Xiaomi device altogether. I've never owned a Xiaomi phone. And since getting this tablet here, I started digging more into that brand, the Xiaomi brand. And what I found is pretty surprising. Is Samsung in trouble? Should they be watching out? Let's talk about this. Now, if you've seen any of the multiple videos that I've made on this tablet here, then you probably already know where I stand when it comes down to this particular tablet, despite, the fact that it's built to look a little bit like an iPad Pro or an iPad Air, and the fact that it mimics the iPad OS. I still think, it's not a tablet that can replace an iPad Pro. I always look at it as an Android tablet, which, by the way, it is. It's an Android tablet, despite mimicking, a lot of Apple stuff. As an Android tablet, that should be going against the Galaxy Tab S7. I've always felt like the Xiaomi brand, despite knowing, having limited information on this brand, I've always felt like that was more of a competitor to Samsung. And I didn't even know how deep that competition was until I started doing some research and seeing that Xiaomi was already taking that competition up to Samsung. Now, over time, a bunch of people have complained about the fact that, Samsung just makes way too many devices for way too many different categories. And some good examples would be like the Galaxy Tab A7 Lite, right? So like a budget tablet for a budget, so a budget tablet, or the Galaxy Tab S7 FE, which is kind of like a medium, like a mid-range, but still like almost pro tablet. Just a bunch of tablets all over the place that Samsung makes. And it just gets worse with the phones, right? You have the Galaxy S series, which is part of their flagship categories, but within that flagship category, you then have a bunch of flagship phones, right? And you have the Note series that die, you have the A series, you have the C series, the J series, the Prime, the Pro, the E, the Max, and so forth. And of course, we can't say all of this without counting all the foldables that we have. So just way too many devices. But guess what? Xiaomi is that one company that is doing literally the same thing. They have tons of phones that just almost mirror whatever phone Samsung is making, and they make the phone either exactly the same in terms of specs and what it has to offer, except they sell it cheaper, right? So they would make a phone that offers either the same value or, more in the majority of cases, way more affordable prices when compared to Samsung phones, just so that they can beat Samsung. And I gotta tell you, it might just be working because Xiaomi is huge out there. The US market is a pretty tough market to break in, right? So Xiaomi is first focused on taking over, all of these different categories on these multiple markets outside of the US market. And it's doing so using some of its, or through its multiple subsidiaries or, children companies to, make and distribute a wide range of phones from different phone categories outside of the US again. So in many other regions or many other markets, you would have things like, the Xiaomi series that we already know, the Poco series, the Note, the Max, the Mix, the Redmi, and many more. And by the way, each one of these series actually represent a whole mobile tech category, right? Whether it contains just a few phones or a bunch of phones. So pretty much covering all of the bases as Samsung does. Now, you have to realize that despite the fact that these companies make or set the price on their different devices, you, the consumer, who actually make up that market, you dictate the market price. You dictate whether it goes up or it goes down. And the reason I'm saying this is because Xiaomi makes Samsung look like they are overcharging that consumer, which is you, as I just said. And let me explain why. Have you ever purchased a brand new Samsung phone? What is the most frustrating, one of the most frustrating things about that phone? Let's say a month after you buy, the price drop. Watch the price after a month, after 6 weeks. See what happens. So let's put this in perspective to connect with what I said earlier, right? So person A buys that new Samsung, let's say Galaxy S21, and person B pays $700 for a Xiaomi Mi 11 or something when it comes out also. Those two phones, pretty much the same category. Now, despite the Samsung being more expensive when it came out, the Xiaomi is going to be the one with either the same resale value as the Samsung, which was more expensive at the beginning, or in many cases could potentially even resell higher than what the Samsung would sell for. So it's as if Xiaomi knows or understands the market better and prices its devices closer to what the consumer, what the market is dictating the price should be, right? Because they price it lower than Samsung, closer to what the market is looking for. And then the resale value doesn't drastically drop as it is the case with the Samsung Galaxy phone or whatever the case. So it's either that, either they fully understand where the consumer wants that price to be, or they're simply coming out the park just trying to undercut Samsung. So if Samsung makes something that's $1,000, they make the same thing and sell it for $800. If Samsung makes something that's $800, they're gonna match it or almost match it in specs and sell it, you know, a little bit lower. I don't know. Either way, it's still more exposure for Xiaomi, which means they continue to grow. And of course, it gets worse when you look at all of the, alt brands that Xiaomi owns and uses to drop even cheaper devices or more value-oriented devices out there. And I'm talking top specs phone with very, very, very affordable prices, right? So should Samsung be worried about the strategy and how it's gonna play out in the market? When it comes down to their share of the market, should they be worried? I personally think yes and no, as long as they continue to innovate, right? So as of now, they are the pioneer when it comes down to, well, one of the pioneers when it comes down to foldable technology, right? So they're trying different things and trying to innovate, doing different things. As long as they continue to do that and they stay on top when it comes down to, Android devices, they try to stay on top in the most important markets, which include, of course, the US, or let's just say North America, as Xiaomi is preparing to enter. No one knows when they're going to decide to fully enter the US market or if they ever will. So Samsung should try its best not to go to sleep and just to keep innovating, because in my opinion, Xiaomi seems to be doing a lot of big things, but just on the surface. And I don't think Samsung should crap its pants, at least not just yet. And here's another main reason why. Xiaomi is going to have an extremely hard time to break into the US market. And by break into the US market, I don't necessarily mean, to try. They can try, obviously they could try to enter the market. What I'm saying is that it's going to be tough for them to conquer the US market because of a variety of reasons, and I would just like to name a couple of main reasons, right? So the first one would be just the potential of lawsuits. I don't know if you've ever used a Xiaomi. I personally had never used one, but when I was using this thing, I was like, is this an iPad? Why is the UI the same? Why is it built like an iPad, right? I just feel like they've infringed on a number of patents that Apple would not let go. Now, the next thing that may slow Xiaomi down is the fact that Samsung has already acquired some pretty important strategic partnerships, right, with very, very large and important companies. Google being the first and Microsoft being the other one. Now, don't get me wrong. If you look at it, there's been some level of, paradigm shift, if I want to call it that, to the slight advantage of Xiaomi when it comes down to the global stage, obviously excluding North America. The US just presents a completely different dynamic, right? So there is such thing as a brand recognition that kind of portrays reliability and trust. In the US, when you have a customer or someone just going out there and buying an Apple phone, an Apple iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy phone, there is this assumed peace of mind that they're buying something that is reliable, that is backed by a very well-known and established company, which, by the way, Xiaomi is, obviously. But there's a pretty high level of distrust of Xiaomi just in the US because of just how much backing they're getting from, China. And of course, I'm not trying to make this political at all. What I'm trying to say is that when I see people say, that's a Chinese tablet, I'm not buying a Chinese tablet, that kind of tells you where people stand. These are comments coming from people, actual people. So that tells you that it's going to be pretty tough to break through to those people, for Xiaomi. Obviously, eventually, I'm thinking they will, but they will definitely have to use a strategy that is different from what they are using on the global stage. Overall, I guess, let me just cut this video short. It's been too long. I think Xiaomi is going to continue to do well on the global stage, and Samsung is going to try to hang on. You know, whatever lead it has now, I don't know if Xiaomi took over yet, but the US market is going to remain that very crucial one that Xiaomi is going to be pretty careful the way it tries to enter the market. It's not always about just making the same stuff, using the same ingredients, just selling it cheaper, at least not in the US. It's going to take a little bit more than that. Now, I really tried my best not to, to keep this as apolitical as I possibly could, but I just figured it was a conversation that I can have with you all. I know I have people who watch this channel from overseas, from the US, from Canada, India, different places, around the world. And I figured it would be just an interesting thing to kind of chat about. So let me know what you think of this in the comment section, what you think, what your take is on this. I'm going to catch you there so we can have this back and forth going. Do you think Samsung is in trouble and is going to lose all of its market share, on the global stage and eventually lose it here in the US also, or let's say North America? What do you think? What is your take? I'm going to catch you in the comment section. I'm also going to catch you in the next video as always, of course. Up until that next video, stay safe out there.